Jordan Peterson chimes in on Islam once again. I'm excited to see what this is. I'm Tal, the Traveling Clat, your favorite Zionist prince. Let's take a look at this.
So, Dr. Peterson, I have a lot of questions that arise from your comments at the Balfour 100 event, your M103 video, your recent discussion with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and your comments on Islam in the West in general.
Also, by the way, if you want to support this channel, subscribe right now. We could use the subscribers. It really helps us.
And in your comments, there's this common theme that one of these things is not like the other. You put the Judeo-Christian tradition on the one side and Islam on the other. Specifically, the, quote, complex problem of Islam and the, quote, as a, quote, totalizing system. And before I go further, let me state that if hypothetically a final analysis of Islam resulted in as total a denunciation as your analysis of postmodernism or neo-Marxism, I wouldn't be personally offended at all. This isn't a personal question. In your recent interview with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, she said, Western values are superior to Islamic law and Islamic values. I agree with that, basically, certainly in the context of, let's say, current global affairs. I'll skip the quotes from a Reason magazine interview, but you should read them because hers is a worldview which is very much the West versus Islam, not radical Islam, but Islam, including necessarily the military option. So my question is, at the level of psychological significance of these stories, at the level of mythology and archetype, how is Islam so different from the Judeo-Christian tradition? You know, because Adam, Eve, Havva, Satan, Shaitan, so on and so forth. Everything from the fall to the flood. A lot of what you discuss in this lecture series is necessarily part of Islam as well. And in fact, I think one of the strongest criticisms of Islam is that it's perhaps pretty unoriginal. You know, tonight you said that the moral presuppositions of a culture are instantiated in its stories. I see a lot of the same stories. So current global affairs aside, I'm asking at the deepest levels, how different are these stories and the moral presuppositions?
Okay, well, that's a killer question. Well,
It is a good question.
okay, so the first thing I would say is, fundamentally, I don't know. And so part of the reason that one of the things I'm planning to do is to have a series of discussions. And plenty of people have contacted me about discussing with Ayaan Hirsi Ali. As you know, she has powerful and serious foes. And they're not happy with her black and white distinction. And so, now I read Infidel, and I really liked that book. Like my sense was that she was a heroine. Now, what that means in relationship to Islam, that's a different story, because she came out of a totalitarian, let's say, family structure in a relatively totalitarian society. And you could make the case that there's a correspondence between that and Islam, and you could make the case that there isn't. And of course, that's the critical issue. And so, there's a couple of things that I can't wrap my head around easily in relationship to Islam. And so one is what I see as the failure to separate church from state. And that's a problem. Now, it may not be a problem as such, but it's certainly a problem in relationship to the relation between Islam and the West, because we separate church from state. Now, there's fundamentalists in the United States, Christian fundamentalists, who think that that separation is a mistake. So it's not only an idea that's rooted in Islam that those should be united. But it's definitely a problem with regards to our coexistence, because that's a fundamentally different presumption. Okay, so that's problem number one. Problem number two, for me, and again, this may be a consequence of my ignorance, which I'm trying to rectify, Muhammad was a warlord. And I don't know what to do about that fact. Like, one thing you can say about Christ, hypothetically, let's say, I'm not talking about a historical reality necessarily, although I'm not denying it either, is that of all the things he was, warlord was definitely not one of them. And I don't know what to do about that. And so I don't know how to reconcile that. And I don't know how to reconcile, like, not only was Muhammad a warlord, which I don't think is an unreasonable thing to proclaim.
He's being so polite, by the way. This is like very... It's kind of nice to hear Jordan Peterson being this polite.
The expansion that he initiated was unbelievably successful. I mean, within 600 years, it was the biggest empire the world had ever seen. And it demolished Byzantine Christianity, which is something that Western people don't even know. You know, I've read thinkers who said that the West was so traumatized, culturally, let's say, by the demolition of Byzantine Christianity, that we can't even study it now. And so, I don't know if that's true, but I don't know that it's not true either. And the Buddhists were wiped out of Afghanistan, and we saw that echoed in the Taliban's destruction of those great Buddhist monuments. And so what I'm hoping is that there's a bridge. There better be a bridge. And that's why I want to have these discussions, because I'd like to understand if there's a bridge. And so lots of people have sent me people who I should talk to, who they think represent Islam far better than Ayaan Hirsi Ali. And perhaps they're correct, and hopefully I'll get an opportunity to talk to them, because I would like to know why, I would like to know if what I think is wrong. Because if it's wrong, it's important that I know it's wrong. But at the moment, I don't know it's wrong, and B, I don't see I'm not sure what it signifies. So, and I don't think anyone is sure, right? Because we have this entangling of the civilizations. You know, and there's other things too, like I'm not very happy with the Saudi Arabs and the Wahhabis. I don't think they're our allies. I don't see how any Western woman can possibly think that they're our allies. And I'm not happy with the fact that the petrodollars that we send them are transformed in substantial part into the kind of propaganda that's definitely a threat to the West. And I'm not very happy with the fact that our politicians appear stupidly blind to that. Now, that may again be a consequence of my ignorance. It's certainly possible. But those are the sorts of things that I can't reconcile. And so, you know, I've also seen parallels between the ideas that I'm presenting here and other religious traditions, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism. It's harder for me to bridge the gap with Islam, and I'm not sure why that is. I think it has something to do with the things that I just laid out. Now, what I don't know about Islam would fill very many volumes, many of which I have sitting on my shelves at home right now, because I want to do the reading, you know, as I progress through this. But yeah.
That's just honestly riveting. Like, this has got to be one of my favorite clips I've ever reacted to thus far. So what an honest take. You know, this is something as a Jew who loves Muslims and loves Islam from a certain perspective. I've read the Quran twice now. I have many, many Muslim friends that I love dearly. People who are strict followers of Muhammad, the Prophet. And I have the utmost respect for them. I think it's a really beautiful thing to be able to say the truth, even to Muslim followers, which is, you know what, even as a Jew, I struggle with Muhammad. It's a problem for me. Because when I read the story of the Battle of Khaybar and how Muhammad, based on assertions of a backstabbing, beheaded the father and brother of a Jewish woman named Safiya, and then took her by force as his 10th wife, I always struggle with that, because I say, if that's where the sort of Jewish Islamic relationship stood at a certain point, I don't know where I fit into that worldview in a long term. And this comes from a place of not disrespect, but of respect. I can have massive respect for Islam, for Muslims, and for Arab people, which I do. And I want the best for them, which I always reiterate with how much shit talking I do on this channel. I always reiterate the fact that this comes from a place of love and not hate and not bigotry. But it's a genuine grievance. It's a genuine, just like Jordan says, Muhammad was a warlord. There is no way around that. He fought many a war. He killed many a people. He colonized. He conquered. Again, it was the name of the game back then. And we even have prophets in Judaism that were a part of that lifestyle. But the ones that we hold and idolize to, usually in the mainstream religious beliefs nowadays, they usually, I'm not saying always, but usually they don't have those traits. But in Islam, the one and the one main prophet, the one main person that you're praying alongside, praying with, not praying for, but thinking about all the time, had some very vicious, wild traits about him. And as a Jew looking in, it's kind of difficult. And I even understand what he's saying from Christianity perspective. Jesus was definitely not that. Jesus was a Jew who was very mostly calm, and most of his, I'm not going to say negativity, but most of his attacks came in a verbal way, not in a violent way, not in an actual physical way. So I think that having an honest conversation like that is such a beautiful thing. Like, we should have that more often, to be able to say these things. I actually think that would really help bridge the gap between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, if we felt comfortable as Christians and Jews to be able to tell Muslims how we feel, not in a bigoted way, not in a way to bring them down, but actually tell them, like, listen, I have so many friends that I've made since October 7th that are Islamophobic, or ex-Muslims who are Islamophobic, and it's because they're genuinely scared. They have genuine grievances with the organized religion and with the Quran, things that they've read in there that do not sit right with them, and they are genuine grievances. And as somebody who is not either an ex-Muslim or an Islamophobe, I would say, how am I supposed to tell them that they're wrong? Like, how am I supposed to tell them that there are genuine fears of this organized religion and the people who make it up, and the end of the prophets in the story? How can I tell them that they're wrong? You know what I'm saying? But I think the honesty behind this is really refreshing. It is a beautiful take by Jordan Peterson. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you a long time. Goodbye, Clads.
If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on thetravelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.